Hi, I'm Ian Flintoff, the founder of Charity Excellence. This is the second video in our Get Fundraising Fit series, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the fundamentals of submitting bids, how to make that as quick and easy as possible, and how to maximize your chances of success with the bids that you do submit. So let's look at fundraising. Let's look at the current situation. Get the basics right. Many don't. Making a compelling case, your case for support, and finding enough of the right funders. So where are we with fundraising trends? This is our sector resilience forecast. We actually got the cost of living crisis bang on. You can see us recovering through 2024, but at the end of the year, it's still below where it was. We don't see any full recovery until we get recovery in the economy, and we think that'll be 2025 if then. So fundraising is tough. It's as tough as I've ever seen it. It isn't going to get better in the near future. So we need to get the basics right. Those that don't get any funding. If you don't do this, they won't even read it. So remember who this is about. I sat on a board of grant makers. I chaired it for 10 years. And I read loads and loads of, we want, I want, the charity wants. No. It's the funder's money. You need to convince the funder. It's about what the funder wants. And they want to make a difference to people's lives. So it's about what your beneficiaries need. That's the way to frame this. So we've gone to the funder's website or the downloadable guide or the information or attached database. Our bid fits what they want. We're eligible. There are no rules. There are about 10, 15,000 grant makers in the UK. It could be areas of geography. It could be timescales for submission. It could be sectors. It could be limited certain income sizes. You must fit. So you have checked that. If possible, you've engaged them, meeting them, phoning them, email. This really increases your chances of success. If they know you and they're engaged, that really does make a difference. And it's also very, very useful about feedback. So the website may say they fund this, and you've really put that in there, and you talk to them and they go, yeah, I know that, but we've never really done that. But that bit down there in your bid, Mr. Blogs on the panel loves that. And we've funded a lot of that kind of stuff recently. Well, that's really, really valuable. So the bit you'd put at the top, you move it down a bit. The bit that was further down to the bottom, you put it up to the top because you know that's the kind of thing that would be really valuable to them. Some are brilliant and will talk to you. Some will respond to emails. Some will just completely ignore you. But if you can engage them, that's really, really useful. So you meet their requirements. They will have specific eligibility criteria. There is such demand for funding. If you don't meet their criteria, it will just get thrown in the bin. If you don't read their guidelines, why should they read your bid? Okay? So, and have you complied with their instructions? Some of them actually still require you to write letters, surprisingly. It's online, we need you to do this. If they say we need information A, B, and C in order to make a decision about your grant, if you do not put that in, some of them might just not look at it, and others might go, yeah, kind of like it, but they haven't given us the information to make a decision now. And in a very, very competitive market, the people who have answered exactly what they've asked for will get through a new one. So have you given them what they've asked for? Meet the deadlines, meet the word counts. They may give you guidance on attachments. If they're happy to take attachments, that impact report or that leaflet with a fabulous imagery about your beneficiaries really, really being happy and fantastic quotes, add that, yeah, that's fine. If they ask for it, make sure they get it. If they say you can send it in, give them stuff that will support it, but don't step outside what they've asked you to do. You're trying to convince them If they say this is what they need, give it to them. And making a compelling case. Quality of bid has always mattered, but now it is so competitive. If you shove in a standard bid that isn't properly thought through, it's just not going to get anywhere. And I talk to people who said, oh, we've put in 200 funding applications. I'm saying, well, did you send in a sort of flat standard thing to everybody you could see? And they went, yes, not going to get you anywhere. Quality matters. You have to make the case. So how do you make your case well? You know how urgent and how much demand there is. This is someone who's probably never met you. They're just going to read it. They're going to read a few words and they will make their mind up whether that's the case or not. You must make the business case. And effectively, that's what you're doing. You're making a business case. Have you got the facts, the figures, the arguments that make that case? And it's not difficult to find. Charity Excellence Data Finder can search tens of millions of pieces of data across the globe. It'll find it for you. Just Google it. If you work in the local area, your council may well have produced things that talk about deprivation in your area or particular issues or challenges or your demographic or you're dealing with young people with mental health. There will be information on young people and mental health. Get the facts, make the case, show them there is a huge need and that need's urgent. And you need to explain why you're best placed to deliver it or to give it to someone else. And lots of charities say to me, oh, well, we're just a little charity. We don't really know anything. Marginalised charities or very local charities, often very close to the beneficiaries. You know their needs in a way that no one else does. They trust you in a way that no one else does. So your little local charity can reach people that social services and the NHS and the major charities can't reach. What is it about you really enables you to make a difference? It really uses their funding incredibly well. And you must convey the urgency of the need. There is such demand that if it's not urgent, it's going to go to the food bank down the road because that is urgent. And be careful how you word it. So I was talking to a Caribbean group and they got the old folks on the estate together. That's people like me. And they had a great time. They had the Jamaican patties, they had a bit of reggae. It sounded lovely. That's not urgent. But what they were actually doing is engaging some of the most vulnerable and excluded people in the community. Things like culture and language get in the way of accessing services. Social services can never reach these people. They don't know how to do that. And bringing them together, and they would have a chat with them. They'd do the messages for them, and they would actually help them access NHS services, and they were alleviating isolation, they were alleviating loneliness, they were actually helping to promote good mental health, and that is absolutely critical right now. Phrased that way, the bid was completely different. So the urgency, why is it really urgent? And always estimate your costs. Some of it may be a guess. If you gold plate it, I'm Scottish, I will spot that. And I've seen the bids come through. Well, quite clearly, they've just pumped all the costs up. I just chuck them in the bin. If you're not going to play fair by me, you're certainly not getting my money. And don't undercook them. Because I've also gone in and chatted with charities and they've gone, we got 10,000. We forgot about costs. It's going to cost 12, 13,000 to deliver it. We haven't got the money. And things like travel costs, admin costs, hiring the hall, paying for the person to come in and do that. Just make sure you've captured them and they're realistic. Now, if you're a larger charity, including overheads such as rent and insurance, if you can possibly do that, do so. Often funders may say, we will accept up to 10% or something like that. And one way I've done it is I will cost it in. So if I give you 1 day of a project manager, the actual cash cost for the project manager is £15 because we don't pay on anything. And I will then cost in a share of the overheads. So the cost of the manager turns out to be £21. Unlikely to accept more than 10 or 15%. And some won't accept it. Some just want to pay for the project. I think that's bad. but there are people that do that. So get your costings nice and tight. And it will engage the funder. So you've got the facts and figures and you've made the case. Here is a need. We're the people to do it. It's really urgent this happens. And the funder's going, yeah, I've got that. So people need to see the facts and figures to convince them that this needs to be done. People do not give to a business case. People give to people. So your funding bid needs to be compelling, but it also needs to be emotionally engaging. So how are you going to go about that? Short, clear, understood by anyone reading it. These people may know nothing about your charity. You may use mental health clinical language or other kind of language or slang, but clear, simple, plain English. It depends on what the funder asks for. Major funding bids can run to pages and pages and pages. But for your average kind of bid for a small charity, not more than a couple of pages. I used to sit down and read things on a Sunday afternoon, and I had 15, 20 bids to get through. If your bid turns up and it's got 15 pages, and I'd rather be out in the garden and I will read it, but it's bloody hard going and you're not really setting me on fire, and I may miss the key messages you want me to get because they're buried in all that prose. Yeah. Jargon free, acronyms are easily understandable and explained. I can talk to you about stuff like EFAR. If you're interested, it's extended field anomaly relaxation. Meaningless? Yeah. So if it's the BBC, everybody knows what that stands for. Say yes, explain it once, then use it. But someone reads it. It's very clear, it's very simple, it's engaging, and it's emotionally engaging. People give to people. They want to know that the money that they will give you will make a difference to an issue that matters to them. One of the bids we had came in, I think it's from a refugee group. It was awful. I mean, it's just, they didn't give us the information we needed. They didn't give me the information we'd asked for. We asked for stuff that was very basically very simple. And they had no clear project plan. It was not going to work. And there was one line in there about a little girl. And it was her situation and what they'd done to help her. And I said to the board secretary, that ain't going through. Take it back. I want you to speak to them. I want you to turn this into a credible plan. I want to see an effectively deliverable project. Then you bring it back to the board and we will fund it. Because if that's what they've done for that little girl, we need to fund this. But what they've suggested is awful. So many won't do that. Make sure you've got it clear. Why fund you? If you ask me for money, you have to give me a reason why I should give the money to you, because everybody else wants the money as well. So it could be there is a greater unmet need. So things like young people in mental health. It was awful before COVID. It was a hell of a lot worse after COVID, and the cost of living crisis, if anything, has made it worse. People in lower socioeconomic groups, for them, inflation is much higher than the well-off middle classes. People in certain parts of the country are struggling far more. People in marginalized groups have greater challenges. So what is it that means you're particularly deserving, that you're particularly good at this? It could be that you're entirely volunteer-led and all of your money flows to the front line. Whatever, but be clear, why should they fund your group? So you're able to reach and engage communities in a way others can't. The communities you're supporting often face multiple challenges and deprivation. Poverty brings poor education, it brings poor health outcomes, it can drive people into county lines in the criminal justice system. You're often not talking about one thing, you're talking about people who are being hammered on every side by different areas, multiple challenges and deprivation. And they're often least able to access that support that's available. And I did one for a Muslim group, and I was helping them. And older Muslim people in their community, it was a high area of deprivation. There were challenges around culture, there were challenges around language, and the people that needed and deserved support just weren't able to access it. And what they were doing is they were opening that up And they were making sure that these people were looked after, and nobody else could do it because the older people wouldn't trust them. These guys were from the mosque, they trusted them. They didn't trust other people. Or you have an in-depth understanding of the need and the ability to deliver on that need. So what is it that makes you special? So what do success rates look like? It depends on a lot of factors. You may know all the funders really well. You may be in a cause that is attractive to funders, food banks, donkey sanctuaries, people in criminal justice, charity excellence, we're tech and infrastructure. Nobody's interested in us. So there's lots of different factors. The old, like me, crude rule of thumb was 1 in 3 engaged funders would fund you, 1 in 10 cold funders would. That went west after COVID. It is probably worse. I don't know what those numbers are. Warm funders, it's 1 in 10 or even more. But you really need to understand this is not about putting a funding bid in. This is about putting in substantial numbers of funding bids to generate it. The advice above will help move the probability of success in your favour, but you are going to have to write a lot of funding bids. So if you want £20,000, Awards for All's £20,000, you might want to get in a £10,000 one, you might need to get in a £5,000 one, you might want to get in a few at £1,000. And if you do all of that, you may then secure the funding. That's a lot of bids to write, and that's time consuming. So what we're going to do about that? It's a case for sport. You can submit better bids and you can do it more quickly. And you need both of those. Now, I will walk you through it. If you don't know how to do fundraising bids, etc., and you're not sure, particularly if English isn't one of your strong points and you don't write English prose well, if you log into Charity Excellence, the in-system bunny will ask you a whole series of questions and will write funding bids for you. It will write your case for support. You don't need any fundraising experience. You don't need any tech experience. Go to the website, click the AI bid writer, go to the bottom of the page, download the Word document, fill it in, log in, and it will write a case for support for you. But this is what it's doing. Why would you have a case for support? It saves you time. Writing multiple bids. So I wrote one, the last one I wrote ended up about 4, 5, 6 pages. I put a lot of effort into it. I wanted the best arguments, the most effective statistics, really compelling arguments around the need and why that need and about us and why we were good and the quotes and all of that stuff. And I put a lot out. Once you've got one, you cut and paste and cut and paste and cut and paste, and you tailor each one to each individual funder, and you can get those bids out much quicker. I think the most I ever managed, that's me taking all the credit, it was the fundraising team, was when I was chief exec of the care charity, and we churned out about 40 bids in an afternoon. And you get better quality bids. You can never remember all the killer arguments and stats and facts and arguments. If you've got them all in one place and it's all done in one go and it's written really well, then in actual fact, you will always make the best argument because you've got it in one place. And this isn't a fundraising thing, but I've always used it. I used it for comms. Comms is the foundations of fundraising. What do you need to fundraise? You need donors and you need them to be engaged. Well, that's what your communications does. So your case for support, all of the killer arguments and facts and stats, use it in your website, in your newsletter, in your social media. This is the best possible case you can make about the fantastic work that you do. Well, use it. Use it in your communications as well. Why not? I like to get maximum payback. So, succinct. It needs to be really short and clear. Don't make it wordy. Don't just say stuff for the sake of it. Too much, and they may miss your key points. Or they'll just stop reading. Jargon free. Don't waffle. Don't use acronyms unless people can understand them. And don't use jargon that they won't understand. They don't know about you. So it needs to be really clear, simple, plain English. It's actually quite difficult to write, but it's really powerful when you do it. urgency. Why do they need to fund you now? There is such huge competition. If yours is nice to do, it's going to go to the food bank. And it's emotionally engaging. People give to people. The funder can see the difference that this will make to people's lives, or the dog's lives, or whatever. And it's compelling. You've made the case. This is why the funding is important. We're the people to do it. Here are the facts and figures and arguments that very simply and clearly demonstrate why this really matters. How are you going to do this? I would often write it. I would spend it. I would put a lot of time into this. Do it once, do it well. And then I would give it to other people. I'd give it to the chair. I'd give it to the grant maker. If I had a friendly team grant maker around, I would give it to other people. I would give it to my beneficiaries. I'd give it to beneficiaries. Do you think this is fair? This is actually true. This is described. Are you okay about the way I talk about you? And I would get all the people to give me the views, and then I would rewrite it again. And finally, I would have something that was the very best that we possibly could. And it's convincing. They need to believe it. You can't write to a funder and say, what I'm doing is really important, and I want 20,000 quid to do this. The funder's going to go, it's my money. If you want the funder to give it to you, you have to show the funder that the stuff that matters to the funder and that giving it to you will be a safe pair of hands and you will really deliver for them in helping people. So what do you want to put in it? Background information. This is who we are. This is what we do. Don't forget things like prizes or awards or stuff like that. What the need is and why addressing it is important and urgent. How you meet the needs of your beneficiaries and the impact it will have. We deliver these services. This is what it does. The feedback from beneficiaries is this. Okay, I can see that. And evidence your work. Facts, information, examples of successes. In case of Charity Excellence, I can tell you we set membership at 40,000. That makes us, by orders of magnitude, the biggest charity community in the UK. Last month, we recruited 3,500 charities. That means that we're growing far, far faster than anyone else. And 46% of our beneficiaries tell us that in actual fact, they would rate the system 10 out of 10. And we have got online going things. And I can give you a whole series of stats about impact. I've got case studies, I've got quotes, I've got all of that. And I need that to my hand. So when I speak to funders, I can give them this information. Maximizing success. Not just enough funders, but the right ones. People that blast out to every single funder under the sun without looking at it. You will not get anywhere. It's just too competitive. So think widely. Think about getting a really good fit. So you pick the obvious one, who you help. So in terms of the Caribbean group, it was the BAME community. BAME funders, thank you very much. That's worth applying for. Some sectors really quite struggle. In searching, who causes me problems? LGBTIQ plus community. Bloody hard to find funding for them. Women's groups, animals, criminal justice. What do people like? They're always happy with things like the vulnerable, food banks, youth groups. So look also at the difference you make. So the Caribbean group, it wasn't just a nice old folks club on a Sunday. It was actually about targeting things like loneliness, mental health. And they could apply to funders for older people. So think about who else you might apply and how you're going to do it. So for example, they wanted to refurbish the community centre. Well, that would be capital build funders. Or they wanted to get laptops so they could chat to the nephew who was up in Newcastle that they'd never met. And they could chat online about that. There are tech funders. Access Foundation specifically support access to tech for people. So you look and how you package it. And what type of support are you looking for? How much money? If you're looking for a small amount of money, then little local funders and things like that are fantastic. Project funding is far easier than core. Multi-year funding is great if you can find it. and some come with other supports. The Lloyds Bank Foundation will give you mentoring and support to come with it. So different funders do different things. And also look at their attitude. I found one recently in Berkshire, which was about promoting the morals of women and girls. It was probably bang on trend about the 1800s, but kind of off now. But many of them are terribly traditional. They want to see proper charitable stuff the way it used to be. But you get people that are more edgy. The Edge Fund will particularly happy support people who've been married. You've got others who really, really want to help specific marginalized groups like prisoners, gypsies, the BAME community. There are people who say, yeah, we're going to help the guys that normally don't get any help. Some of them are looking for innovation. Just see about reading the culture in there and local. Part of what I'm doing with Charity Excellence is I'm looking for the funders that are a lot less well known because there's a lot less competition. So if you target funders in the local area, you're going to have less of a fight with the big national charities. If you're finding people that are fairly niche, then there's going to be less competition for that. And partly that's where our research is going. And then look at how well you fit. So if it's an older person charity, it may well accept an application. If it's an older person's charity that says it prioritizes the BAME community, wait a minute, this is getting rock and roll, this is getting a lot better. And if it's an older person charity and it promotes the BAME community and they only fund charities of income under 100,000 and you're a little local charity, actually the number of people that fall within that category is really quite small. And you're one of them, so you've got a much better chance. And you're beginning to find the funders that really, really work for you. So that's the way to think widely and look for best fit. So in summary, how do you approach this? Get the basics right. The funder will tell you what they want. Give it to them. Make sure the bid is compelling. There is a huge level of competition. Quality always matters. It matters more now than ever. So what you need, a compelling case, the facts and figures, this is the need. This is why it's urgent. This is why we are the best placed. You're making a business case. But ultimately, people in the charity sector give to see the difference it makes to people's lives. So it needs to be emotionally engaging. They need to be able to see that the things that matter to them, that you really are tackling. How are you going to get loads of bids in? Creating a case for support. You can go to the Bid Bunny. The Bid Bunny will do it for you. But it makes your bids more effective and it makes them quicker to write. There is also an online guide that provides this in more detail written by me. You will find it on the website. You will find a link to that in the text of the YouTube channel. And then you need to go out and find the right funders for you. So you need to find enough of them and you want to niche yourself in there if you can, so there is much less competition. That is a quick step through how you set things up. If you log into Charity Excellence, you can go through the income questionnaire and it will assess all of your fundraising for you. It's got the funding finder directory, which can reach 100,000 funders globally because it finds other funding directories. You can use the help finder directory and it will go and look for local companies who are making donations, and there is data finder. So there is a whole series of things to help you. Everything on the system is free. You just need to join us. Thank you for listening to me. I wish you every success.